It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're at the halfway point of 1999. We're at 4th of July weekend, June 30th to be exact, but actually July 2nd. I was wrong on that. July 2nd, 1999. June 30th, July 2nd, pretty much the same week here. We've got three notable films that came out this weekend, so let's just go ahead and jump right on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and it was not only the big movie of the weekend, but it turned out to be one of the biggest bombs of all time, and that is, of course, Will Smith and Kevin Kline in Barry Sonnenfeld's Wild Wild West. So basically, the plot of this is that Will Smith plays Jim West, and Kevin Kline is Arthur Gordon. Artemis Gordon. They are two U.S. Secret Service agents working in the West. They have to protect the President Ulysses S. Grant, played also by Kevin Kline, and the United States from all manners of dangerous threats during the American Old West, including a bad guy played by Kenneth Branagh. You also have Salma Hayek, Ted Levine, and Emmett Walsh. And talk about a movie that was trying to literally rip off everything that Will Smith and Barry Sonnenfeld did with Men in Black, because holy mother of God, they did not even hide the fact that they were trying to create their own Men in Black with this. But Wild Wild West, the TV series from the 1960s, it was never anything like this. And a movie that was so bad that Will Smith literally had to go to the person that played Jim West to apologize to him for making this movie. That's how you know this was a bad move on Will Smith's part. It was a film that literally kind of slowed down Will Smith's growing star power. I mean, we've talked about it before. He turned down The Matrix to be in this movie. That should tell you everything you need to know there, but you could just look at this movie and just see, like I said, they were trying to rip off Men in Black on so many levels, but Men in Black works because it's based off the source material. They had a good script. They had good chemistry between Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. Great direction by Barry Sonnenfeld. Everything that happened in that movie could make sense in that universe. Nothing in this universe makes any sense whatsoever. I mean, this whole movie is unbelievably bad, and I went to go see this on the big screen when I was little. I liked it when I was little, but then again, I was only 10 years old when it came out, so I'll pretty much like anything if you put it on the big screen. I go to a movie theater once every week, but no, when you watch this again many years later, you start to realize that, yeah, this is not a good movie. And like I said, it's literally taking from all the things that Men in Black did. We gotta have Will Smith in there. We gotta have Barry Sonnenfeld, the director. We've gotta have the soundtrack, which is it's probably the more successful thing that came from this movie than the movie we actually did. That soundtrack is pretty damn good, but unfortunately it's attached to this film here. And hey, you know what? John Peters finally got his wish. He finally got to have his big mechanical spider, and unfortunately it's in Wild Wild West. Oh my God. Was it really worth it, dude? You really wanted this in a Superman movie that much that you had to put this in Wild Wild West. Man, this is a terrible film. This is a horrible, horrible movie. Is there anything about this movie that's worth it? A couple things. I mean, Kevin Kline, he's doing the best he can in here. I don't think he should have gotten nominated for the Razzie, but at least he's trying. At least he's trying to say, "Hey, my name's attached to this. I'm gonna put some effort into this." But Kenneth Branagh, I'll give him credit. He's trying to do something that's completely outside of his norm, even though it didn't really work out in the end. He was still not a very good villain. But yeah, other than that, though, there's really not much more I can add to this movie that hasn't already been said. This is not a good film by any means necessary. This is an insult to the television series. Even if you've never seen the TV series, this is an insult to just movies in general. There was a great TV adaptation by Warner Brothers that came out in the mid-90s that was based off of a Western. That was Maverick, the Richard Donner film with Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster, and James Garner. That was a much better representation of that show and how to make that into a modern setting and actually make it work. Here, no, this is clearly peak late 1990s, where you got to throw all these big special effects, and we just got to have our own Men in Black. I mean, we got to have our own Men in Black at Warner Brothers, and yeah, that did not work out so well for them, and really, there's not much more I can really add to this film. This is a terrible, terrible movie. Great soundtrack. Kevin Kline's at least trying. That's pretty much all you can say about Wild Wild West. So, How about we get to a much better movie? Probably easily the best overall movie that came out this weekend. And that is, of course, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. I mean, for a South Park movie to come literally less than 2 years after the show premiered, I guess there was some kind of deal at Paramount when they made at Comedy Central when they made the show that they had to make a movie at Paramount. I don't know if that's entirely true or not, but it wouldn't be surprising as South Park did kind of take off right away. I mean, they tried to make Trey Parker and Matt Stone into movie stars within the year after the show came out, the previous year with Basketball, and then later on with Orgasmo, which went on to become cult hits. But so basically, in this film, you have a story where you have the South Park crew. They're going to sneak into an R-rated film starring Terrence and Phillip, after which they begin swearing. The mothers urge the United States to declare war on Canada for allegedly corrupting their children. And Stan, Kyle, and Cartman take it upon themselves to save Terrence and Phillip from being executed, while Kenny, who dies in the movie, no surprise, tries to prevent a prophecy involving Satan and Saddam Hussein's intent to conquer the world. And it was pretty clear that this movie was kind of preparing itself for the inevitable backlash that this movie was going to get. The film tackles a lot of things that... It tackles what South Park usually does best. They tackle topical issues like censorship, bad parroting. They also parody and satirize stuff like the Disney Renaissance, the animated films that were coming out there, and musicals such as Les Miserables, and controversy surrounding the series themselves. And there was a lot of debate between the MPAA and Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who went on to go into numerous problems with the production process, including a title change that would have been called South Park All Hell Breaks Loose, but they couldn't call it that. And the film received an R rating just 2 weeks before it was supposed to come out. And there's a lot of F-bombs in this movie. There's so many F-bombs in this film. Supposedly what they did, apparently one of the things that they had to deal with was the fact that apparently 400 F-bombs get you an NC-17 rating. So what they decided to do, they basically had 399 F-words in this movie. It's still the most F-bombs that are dropped in any animated film, or any film in general, I think. But like 399 F-bombs to avoid an R rating. One off from getting an R rating. That takes a lot of balls to do. And you know what? The movie pays off big time in the end, because, man, this movie's friggin' amazing. This is everything we've come to expect from South Park at this point. And it delivers the best laughs and the best moments of any animated film ever. It's just such a brilliantly funny movie. The songs in here are top-notch. The songs are done by Mark Shaman, who's done great scores over the years. The Truman Show, The Addams Family, just a ton of great scores. A lot of the scores for Rob Reiner's movies. He wrote a lot of the songs on NBC Smash, a very underrated show. There is not one bad song on this album. This is one of the greatest soundtracks you will ever hear. I mean, Kyle's Mom's a Bitch, Up There, La Resistance, it's Another Sunday Morning in Our Beautiful, Quiet, Little Redneck Mountain Town. It's not the title, but you get the idea here. But it's just like, for everything that they had to do, they put a lot of effort into this movie. And this is a film that not only worked then, it still holds up after all these years. This is a film that still gets funnier and much more clever and much more smarter as the years gone on. Almost 25 years after this movie come out, this thing is still relevant even by today's standards. And like I said, man, they put their all into this movie. I mean, this is a film that manages to make not just a good South Park movie, but an incredible animated movie that adult audiences can really enjoy. It's a great musical that for people that do not like musicals will definitely get a kick out of. It's an amazing film. It fits the style of South Park so well, and it's definitely one of the best animated movies ever made. If you have not seen South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut by this point, get off your ass and do see it, man, because it is well worth a watch. It is one of the best animated films you will ever see. It's worth it. South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, Spike Lee's latest film, The Summer of Sam. Yeah, this is kind of where Spike Lee started to enter his little bit of a lull. There was a couple of years where he made a couple of films that were not that great and were definitely below what he usually would make at this point. I mean, it was like this from right after Malcolm X. This is still kind of in the midst of where he'd have these mixed bag movies, and then he'd had a couple films that weren't that weren't as good as some of his early works. And this is definitely one of those films. Summer of Sam. You basically have the story about, this takes place in 1977 New York, around David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, serial murders and their effect on a group of fictional residents of an Italian-American neighborhood in the Bronx in the late 1970s. The killer, David Berkowitz, his murders and the investigation are shown in the film, but the focus is on these two young men from the neighborhood. Vinny, played by John Leguizamo, whose marriage is faltering due to his cheating, and his brother Richie, played by, actually his childhood friend Richie, played by Adrian Brody, who's embraced punk fashion and music. The murder investigation and other contemporary events such as the New York City blackout of 1977 and the New York Yankees' world-winning season provide a backdrop to the stories of Vinny, Richie, their family, and their friends. It's a movie that looks stylish as hell, but should have been Spike Lee's Scorsese-style epic. But it's a highly controversial film, and it's definitely showing that. And the overall finished product is more mad than marvelous. There's definitely some good moments in here, and the performances, I think, by John Leguizamo and Adrian Brody keep it together enough, and they're very well done. But the movie as a whole just doesn't come together as well as I think they wanted it to be. Like I said, Lee was trying so hard to mimic a Scorsese vibe, but he did it with Clockers a couple years ago. But Clockers was at least more clever about it, at least had more of an edge to it. This one definitely has a good angle to it, has some really nice visuals and good performances, but the script is very cluttered. And that trailer, I couldn't show you the whole thing, but man, it sounds like they're trying to sell you this coming-of-age comedy, and more than it is a true-life story about one of the most notorious serial murders in history. And it runs way too long. This is a film that runs for about almost 2.5 hours long, and you got to have something that's going to be something at least more clever and a lot more engaging. And I'm sorry, it's way too hard to be taken seriously if you have a scene where you have a dog voiced by that talks and voiced by John Turturro, and yeah, it just doesn't work. It's trying way too hard to be serious, but comes out hilarious in the end. It's a major disappointing outing for Lee. It's certainly not one of his worst films by a long shot, but man, it's definitely down at the bottom of the barrel for him. You expect so much more from him, but this wasn't it. This was a film that probably had higher ambitions to it, but just not the right execution in the end. So, not much more to say about that one. That is The Summer of Sam. So with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We'll have 2 movies to look at next time, including one of the summer's big breakout hits, American Pie, and we also have Jeff Bridges and, I had the name for a second there, Tim Robbins. I was going to say Sean Penn for a second, but Jeff Bridges and Tim Robbins and Arlington Road. So those 2 films we'll look at on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.